What is up, everybody? Purple and Gold podcast for Monday, April 27th. LSU's SEC losing streak has reached 9 games, swept over the weekend by Mississippi State. Let's run through everything we saw, and then I want to talk a little bit about the LSU players that were drafted and the fall of Garrett Nussmeier to the 7th round. So, before the game on Friday, we got word that Kason Evans was not going to start, and that Gavin Guidry was going to start in his place. And as of this recording on Monday afternoon, we still don't have any definitive injury designation on Kason Evans. The word after the game on Friday night was that he just didn't feel great, didn't feel right. And then some more news emerged over the weekend that it may have been some sort of an arm-related thing. My guess is we're going to shut down Kason Evans for the season unless this was some very, very minor thing. The game Friday night was an opportunity lost by LSU, all 3 games really over the weekend, but particularly the Friday night game. LSU led back and forth, and LSU led by a run in the 9th inning, and Santiago Garcia was on the mound. Mississippi State had the tying run on, nobody out, hit a ground ball to the second baseman for a 4-6-3 double play. Upon review, it was determined, rightfully so, that Stephen Milam did not have his foot, was not able to get his foot on the bag at second base, so there was 1 out and a runner at second base. LSU got the second out, but then a hit through the left side went sort of through Milam. It was a base hit all the way, but if Milam could have knocked it down, maybe kept it on the infield, it might have kept the tying run from scoring, but the tying run did score. Game eventually went 11 innings, and Mississippi State hit a walk-off home run. And at that point, you're really just wondering what else can happen to this LSU baseball team. And then we found out, because late in the game, Chris Stanfield had left the game, and we now know that that was a hamstring injury. He didn't play the last 2 days. John Pearson was also on the injury report. He didn't play the last 2 days. Tanner Reeves played in his place. And as of the time of this recording, I have no updates on either one of them. So LSU got ahead in both the Saturday and Sunday games. The Saturday game, LSU was ahead 7-3 in the 7th inning and just couldn't hold it after having used all of their high leverage relievers on Friday night in an effort to win that game. Mississippi State eventually loaded the bases. Jay Johnson brought in Cooper Williams for a left-on-left matchup with Parker from Mississippi State. Cooper Williams got down 2-0, then hung a pitch, and Parker hit it out for a grand slam. Mississippi State will go on to win that game. Cade Aaron Beatty hit a 3-run homer early in the game on Sunday, and LSU was up 3-0, couldn't hold that lead. Milam hit a 2-run homer. They were up 5-0, couldn't hold that lead. Eventually got up 8-5, couldn't hold that lead, and eventually were just boat raced at the end of the game, and Mississippi State won 13-8. So where do we go from here? Well, Marcos Paz started the game on Sunday, and he didn't do terrible, but he gave up a 3-run homer to Ace Reese in the 2nd inning, which tied the game. He was a pitch away, from getting out of it, and that's sort of been the MO for some of these Tiger pitchers. But I would like to see him start a game again. Jack Ruckert started all 3 games at second base. Mason Braun started all 3 games at first base. Eddie Yaman started 2 games in left field. Omar Cerna had a huge weekend. William Patrick started all 3 games in right field. And I mean, Jay Johnson said as much after the game on Friday night that you never give up on a season and you're never not trying to win. And he did everything he could, certainly on Friday night and all through the weekend, to try to win. But we're going to play younger guys, and we're going to play guys, I think, at this point, who project to potentially be on this team next year. You've got to see these guys in a competitive environment. You've got to see these guys get some at bats and see what they can do. LSU is certainly going to play the transfer portal pretty hard, no doubt. But I suspect a lot of the turnover will be on this pitching staff. So really quickly, let me just address something that has been asked on social media and has been asked by folks in and around message boards, etc. And that is, would Derek Curiel, Jake Brown, Stephen Milam, any of these people come back? Are all of them going to be drafted high enough? Curiel is going to be drafted high. I don't think he's done anything to super diminish his draft stock. If he was, a top 15, 20 pick going into the season, what's he going to be? A top 30, top 40 pick at worst? He's going to be gone. I have to believe Jake Brown's gone. He's made that ascension from freshman to sophomore to junior. He would lose a lot of his leverage coming back. I got to think he's gone. Stephen Milam is interesting because there is a chance he just doesn't get drafted. There is a chance that he just or isn't drafted very high. I mean, look, his offense, he's heated up a little bit here, but his offense hasn't really been there in the regular season the last 2 years. But he is an elite defender. I think Major League Baseball teams will view him as a utility infielder, a guy who could play short, second, third. If someone drafts him even in the 10th, 12th, 14th round, a guy like that may just need to go get his career started because, if he's going to have any chance of making the majors, you would like to be at least age appropriate, if not a little young, for every level in the minors, and he's not going to be that. But I suppose with the right NIL deal, I suppose with the right for LSU draft positioning, I suppose he could come back. I do think the team will be largely built around Omar Cerna, around Cade Arrambide, around Mason Braun. Jack Ruckert and William Patrick haven't played enough to really know. William Patrick's had some rough moments in right field, but I think he can play the outfield. I don't know if he could play center, if he could play left. I expect Eddie Yaman to be on this team next year. I would imagine Jay Johnson would bring John Pearson back just because of what that family has done for LSU baseball. But look, there's going to be a lot of people moving on. Every one of these transfers, Zach York, Trent Caraway, Braden Simpson, Seth Dardar, they'll all be gone. I think the key things will be, can LSU get some of their drafted players through? And then, they'll have to play the portal, I would imagine, for a shortstop if Milam's gone, probably a third baseman. They may want to play the portal for a catcher because it's highly possible that Arrambide or Cerna, probably Cerna, would get moved to first base and do the Jared Jones thing to not have these guys catch. And also, they haven't been that great catching. But we'll talk more about the baseball team as the week progresses. LSU hosts Southeastern Louisiana tomorrow night, and then they host South Carolina for a 3-game series this weekend. Let's recap the second and third days of the NFL draft. So in round 3, A.J. Halsey was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts, and Xavion Thomas was drafted by the Chicago Bears. LSU would see 4 more players get drafted, 3 in round 6, Bauer Sharp to the Bucks, Harold Perkins to the Falcons, and Barrion Brown to the Saints. And then finally, in the 7th round, Garrett Nussmeier was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. 7 additional LSU players signed undrafted free agent contracts, including Chris Hilton, who will join up with Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. So I want to talk a little bit about Nuss. So for people who maybe don't understand how this process works, and look, a lot of quarterbacks were drafted ahead of Garrett Nussmeier that probably shouldn't have been drafted ahead of Garrett Nussmeier. We know about the cyst on his spine, which caused some of his oblique issues. There are also some reports that when they poked and prodded him, there's some tendonitis in his knee. I don't know if any or all of those things played a part in this. What I do know is Garrett Nussmeier, after the 24 season, he could have come out and he may have been a first or second round draft pick. He had some good film. He played good that year for the most part. But he had a reputation as a gunslinger, and he had a reputation as being turnover prone. And I think one of the reasons why he came back was obviously to try to make a run and win with LSU, but also I think he wanted to put some better tape out there and show that he could be a better all-around quarterback. Well, because of the injuries, he obviously didn't get to do that. And then I think you're into a draft process. So once the, let's just say, third round was over, or you get into the fourth round, let's say, at that point, a lot of times teams are drafting linebackers and running backs and guys that can play special teams, and they're drafting things on their roster. The same thing happened to Quinn Ewers from Texas the year before. He didn't go until the seventh round because at that point it's like, do we want to draft a medium-sized name at quarterback? If we already have a quarterback, we know he's not going to play. Do we want to make that kind of investment in a quarterback who can't see the field? And also, if we sort of have a middling quarterback, or we don't have a quarterback, or we have a couple of quarterbacks, do we want to insert this person into that draft, into that team room, into that competition? It's good and bad for Nuss where he went, right? It's obviously great to be in Andy Reid's offense. It's great to be with the Chiefs and to be with Pat Mahomes, but it's bad in the sense that he's just not going to play, barring, injury to Pat Mahomes and Justin Fields. You were sort of hoping that the Steelers or the Jets or the Panthers or maybe even a team like the Dolphins or a team like, I don't know, the Cardinals, I know the Cardinals drafted Carson Beck, but that someone would have drafted him. Maybe he could have sat for a year, 2 years, and maybe he could have worked his way into a competition somewhere down the line. His career path now is such, he'll have to show some things in the preseason. He'll have to do some things, in joint practices. This is a couple 3 years down the road, but he'll have to do some of those things to have an opportunity at some point to maybe be a free agent or to maybe be the kind of quarterback that someone would trade for down the line. So all in all, Brian Kelly, Joe Sloan, the entire LSU coaching staff that was fired, really a lot of LSU players, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, really saw their draft stock tanked. And I do think you have to put some of that on Brian Kelly and Joe Sloan. When you think back to the end of 2024, guys like Chris Hilton, who went undrafted, guys like Aaron Anderson, who went undrafted, a guy like Garrett Nussmeier, this was not on the bingo card, for those guys, Barry and Brown. I know he wasn't on the team in 24, but for those guys to be 6th and 7th round picks and undrafted free agents is just really, really not a good thing. In Harold Perkins' case, I think it's more of being a positionless player. Is he a linebacker? Is he a safety? LSU really did try to move him around. They tried to make him a middle linebacker. They tried to make him, a star. I think they tried to give him some chances to showcase something more than being a pass rusher. But look, if you're the Falcons in the 6th round, you'll take a shot on the athletic ability. You'll take a shot, and you'll see if you can't get something out of him. Maybe he could be a special teams demon. Maybe he could be a situational pass rusher. In the NFL, there's much more of a chance to be a specialized talent than there is in college, because a college team needs you to play every down and they need you to be on the field in a certain specific role. So we'll see how it all unfolds for Harold Perkins with the Falcons. And then good on the Saints for drafting Barry and Brown. And let's hope that Barry and Brown can give the Saints some oomph in the return game and maybe be their number 4 or 5 wide receiver. Saints obviously drafted Jordan Tyson in the 1st round. They drafted 3 wide receivers total. And, they have Chris Olave coming back. So that'll do it for today. LSU did put a bow on spring practice over the weekend. We'll talk some more about that during the week. And LSU women's basketball did get an international commitment today from Noah Moreau, is how I believe you say her name, a 6'3" forward from Spain. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. Still no news on the Will Wade front. Supposedly to have a bunch of silent commitments. So that'll do it for today. Always be good to one another. Please like, share, subscribe on YouTube. Always boot up, and always, always, always go Tigers.